Everyone. That's, that's a way to start, isn't it? Wait for the beach ball on your computer to catch up with sharing the screen. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. Great to see you all here. I'm Simon Walker. I'm Head of Training and Learning at Maxon, and I'm delighted to welcome Darrin and Elly from the Maxon Training Team, two of our expert trainers. Hi guys, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, indeed, as well, yes. And Happy New Year to people who've jumped on the message area or the questions box early. Hi Jay, Ilona, Isaac, Bernd, Kent, Albert, Jonathan, and great to see you all. Thanks for your kind felicitations and wishing us Happy New Year and everything. Hello to Munich and to Nuremberg and from Newcastle and Nottingham as well. So we've got a new year, so new exciting things that are happening in the new year. One of which you may or may not have seen, that the ZBrush team have joined forces with Maxon. They joined the Maxon family. So we're very, very excited about that. And we'll be sharing more information about that publicly in the next coming weeks, but that's going to be really great. Greetings from Hungary and hi Peter, greetings from New Jersey. And regular viewers will know that we like to cover over a series of weeks, different topics. And so for January, we're going to concentrate on CINEWARE 4D Lite. We had a lot of requests for doing that. And it's also a pretty decent time to do it for a number of reasons, which we'll share with you as we progress over the next hour. And we'll dive into this in more detail in weeks 2, 3, and 4. But a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning, just to remind you that we record all these sessions. And we have these sessions on our Maxon Training Team YouTube page. And so if you miss anything on here or you want to rewind or have to leave early or anything like that, you can feel free to go back and watch the recording, all the recordings of the hundreds and hundreds of ones that we've already done, all last year and the year before and so on. And also, if you're interested in other sessions, have a look at the Maxon website, so maxon.net, and go to the events section. And then you'll see lined up the various things that we've got coming up. And one of which is the Friday is we've got the VFX and Chill team back. They got new seasons of VFX and Chill. So that's Hashi and Seth and Michael, and they'll be running through for 2 hours, running through really interesting things about how to do stuff in VFX land. On Thursday this week, we're very excited to invite Jamie Martin, who has created the Hunter Killer Terminator film. He made a short film based on the universe from the first Terminator film.
It's really cool.
Almost
really
entirely in CINEWARE 4D. Yes, it's really, really cool. So please click on that link, and then there's more details about how to join. We'll be doing that as a YouTube live broadcast on Thursday. So please come with your questions and ask him how he made certain stuff. And also, as well as our CINEWARE 4D Lite on Mondays in January, in February, Elly is running hands-on with Maxon for Redshift by popular request. Many people have asked you this, Elly, haven't they?
Yes, especially after the beginners C4D workshop. It was a lot of show us Redshift. So here we are.
And so the idea of that is to take you from scratch, right down from zero upwards. What is Redshift? And then jumping into all sorts of things you can do. But anything else you want to mention briefly about that, Elly?
Yeah, no, pretty much what you said. It's going to be kind of completely from scratch. So if you have no experience in Redshift, we're going to be going from the beginning. You're welcome to join all 4 or just one of the sessions. And there's a couple of additional benefits along the way as well, which will be kind of teased throughout this month, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. There was so much great response from your hands-on sessions that you did on CINEWARE 4D before. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And as are some people in the chat, they're just like commenting on the questions area. So yes, it's always a good sign before you've even run it, Elly. This is great.
Yeah, no, I can't wait as well. So I'm excited.
Cool. A couple of other quick things. One is you can, of course, watch the recordings for our stuff, but also I just wanted to point out you can go to the ZBrush Live site on the pixelogic.com website, and they hold many regular webinars showing all the amazing stuff you can do in ZBrush. So if you want to catch up on that, please have a look at that. That's on pixelogic.com. And also, one other quick little thing, we wanted to to say thank you. So we've got a series of t-shirts we've been giving away each particular month. And if you go to the Maxon merch store, we've got a special secret link for you and a password for that link, which will then allow you to order a free t-shirt. And rather than having just to quickly screen grab the link, here it is. If you go to the handout section of this webinar, you can see the PDF, and in there is this link here. This is the special secret link that you'll need, and then you can then click on that link and then order your t-shirt. You'll need this password. This month it's 3D effects to line in with our Cinema 4D Lite theme. And it's good for one shirt. All we have to do is pay for shipping, which is $3 or €3 or around about that sort of price, maybe $4, depending on where you are. And it will automatically fill up the basket or the shopping cart with that free order. But let us know if you've got any problems with that and we can help sort you out. training@maxon.net, and please, in fact, use that address, training@maxon.net, to come back with us for any questions you've got for future sessions. That'd be great to hear. Cool, great. So we've got quite a few things to share on this session, but I just wanted to say off the top, we may fall off the fence on this conversation because we are all used to Cinema 4D, and we're going to be talking about Cinema 4D Lite. So you can use this for free, launching it from After Effects. And Darren's going to show you some of the workflows in a second. And it's really a way of being able to do, if you're not used to 3D, to be able to do this inside After Effects and add that to your skill set. And it's an easy jump in. So that, and if you wanted to, this is the falling off the fence bit. If you wanted to, there are pathways to use the big version of it. And you get a little, when you first do this, when you launch, you get a little explainer about that. But if you've got any questions about that process or you want to know more, stick around for the next 4 weeks. We're jumping into those, and please ask questions on the questions area as well. We're delighted to help that. So we're kind of wanting to show you how you can do stuff, but if you also then want to get into more depth, then we can also help out with that. And that's what we're planning over the next number of weeks. Next week, Elly's planning to show you how to do some MoGraph things, but without leaving your comfort zone, if you like. So you don't have to master the whole of the interface to be able to do that. And then on weeks 3 and 4, we get into a little more depth, and we're also delighted that Adobe are joining us on week 3. Christine Golby, who's Senior Product Manager of After Effects, is joining us. We're going to talk more about the workflows that are available and possible, and talk a little bit more about tracking and integrating your 3D elements and compositing them and so on. And also the amazing Chad Perkins will be joining us too, and he'll be talking about extra tricks that you can do to composite and make your 3D elements look really as if they belong in the scene, whether it's for a still or a video. Fab, great. So I'm going to hand over to Darren and answer sort of questions like, we've just had a question from Greg. Should I launch After Effects or Cinema 4D? Well, that's a great question. So the workflow for Lite is that you launch from After Effects, but I'm going to hand over Darren, make you presenter. We can jump straight into that.
Oh, cool.
Right.
We will start there then.
That's a good place to start launching it, isn't it?
Yeah, let me close the project I got here.
Right. And by the way, we'll start to answer your questions. That you can see them in the list when we answer them. So please chuck them in, and then we answer them, and everyone can see them publicly. So okay. Thanks for asking that, Melissa.
All right. Is my screen up? Blank After Effects.
Not yet.
I can see it.
Oh, you got it. Okay, great.
Okay. All right. So I'm turning off my camera to save some space in the interface, and I'm going to close. Oh, awesome. That closed automatically and minimize that. Okay, cool. So how do we just get into Lite right off the bat? Well, the idea is that it comes with After Effects. So we want to do it from After Effects. We can simply, in our project files, create a new Maxon Cinema 4D file. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll save that to my desktop, and that'll be live day 1. And we can see in the project list here, there's a Cinema 4D icon, and this is actually the Cinema 4D file. This can be opened in regular Cinema 4D, but if you don't have that, you're fine. It's going to open in Lite automatically. So my Cinema 4D Lite has already started up, and it actually loaded that file automatically. And that's great. Now, if for some reason that did not happen, then you can do that edit original command here in After Effects. Just select it in your project files and then edit original, and it will start up Lite and open up that file. So that's how you can jump right in. And the cool thing is, I'll just do this real quick. Elly's going to be getting much deeper into this later on this month, but I'm just going to add this text here, adjust the angle, and then I'm just going to hit Control S or Command S to save it. And then when I go back over here, it actually updates. It'd be easier to see, however, if I actually made a comp out of this. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this down, make a comp, and there we go. So there are a lot of settings for this Cinema 4D file. This is actually now considered a CINEWARE layer. And this is actually the first thing that I wanted to show off for all of you today was working, not necessarily working, but how I use layers to rebuild a shot in After Effects. So in the settings here, we have the renderer that the CINEWARE renderer is using. Okay, and this is essentially like Cinema 4D renderers. I think it's OpenGL, or is it DirectX now for the viewport? But all these viewport or draft options are the faster ones. The one at the bottom is, I think that's like the fastest. The one at the top, current, that tends to be the slowest renderer. What current means is that it is using the Cinema 4D Lite's render settings here. Okay, so whatever you have set up in your render settings here, that's the current one that is going to be used in over here. Let's see, we have, so the renderer, there's some other options. They are documented in the help, so you can get deeper into that. We can choose to use the camera in the Cinema 4D project file, which it's doing by default, or we can use an After Effects comp or centered comp camera. And then we can also get into layers in Cinema 4D, which right now is grayed out. I'm going to put this, let me do this. I'm going to add a, let's add a disk in here, and I'm going to make it larger, move it down just a smidge. And I'm going to put the text on a new layer. So I'm clicking on this little, like, I don't know, diamond square layers looking icon. And I'm going to choose Add to New Layer. And here is a tab called Layers. That is where our layers exist. Now, these are not for like blending modes or anything like that. It's organizational, okay? So we can solo a layer. In this case, it needs also the text spline. So I'm just going to click on that little, let's change the color so it's a little more visible. I'm going to make it a nice bright blue. I'm just going to click on that and drag down to set the text spline as also part of that layer. So when I solo this, I get that. So if I were to use just this layer in After Effects, this is what I would see. And let me show you how I would get there. Let me save this and go back to After Effects, and it'll update. And now I'm going to, layers are still grayed out. That is very interesting. I wonder why that is. Elly, have you ran into that?
No, I haven't.
Let's see, let's try. Oh, wait, nope, it updated. There we go. Now I can, I guess it just took a moment. Let's turn that on. And then we have to choose what layers we want. So there's, I did not name that layer. And so it's called layer, but everything that you don't put on a layer will automatically be part of this items not on layer. So I just want that layer and I'll hit OK. I know that to be the text. So that's how we can use layers with our CINEWARE files. And I can like copy this layer here. Let's name this first one text and this one ground. And I can set this one to be the items not on the layers, which is that floor disk essentially. So if I show that, there we go. And you can see that it does not automatically knock out that text. It's like, it just displays the objects on those layers, which is pretty cool. I actually have a much more complex example of working with these layers, which also takes advantage of the Cinema 4D multipasses, so that I'm actually like rebuilding the layers in After Effects. So just like the layers, it needs to be turned on first, and then let's turn off the ground. And then we can choose or set which multipass we want. Now, these are all the default options that we already have here. RGBA is basically the final render. I could do like just the, I mean, there's really not much going on here. So I could select diffuse and it's going to look exactly the same. And let me switch to a project I have that is actually, that shows the multipass a little better. Let's see, you know what, why don't I, yeah, let's just do that. So I'm going to close this guy and no need to save. And then I'm going to, let's see, open recent prompt, open recent and image 34 comp, yeah. And here we go. So this is, this originally is this photo, and I thought it'd be really cool to add 3D elements to it using Cinema 4D Lite, and then in After Effects be able to, you know, tweak the look and reflections and stuff. So you can see I have all of these CINEWARE layers, and they are all named for the multipass that is being used here. So if we go through this one at a time, let me turn them all off. Here is the diffuse layer, which is essentially just like the base color without really any effects or anything. And let me show you. So I am using Cinema 4D layers, and I've actually broken up the scene. So I have like basically all of the 3D models here, okay? And then with the multipass workflow, I've chosen to display just the diffuse. So this is just a normal blending mode. And on top of that, I wanted to add, because of like the glass here, some refractions. Refractions come with a bit of like specular reflection. But it just really makes glass look better. That's most of these tend to be additive blending modes, so that's an add mode. And then I went into the reflections. Let me solo this refractions layer. You can see it's really just on that glass there that is visible. And then I'll, oh.
Got a quick question for you.
Yeah, please.
Darrin. Gareth has asked about having the workflow for layers. And his question is, if you have multiple versions of the same C4D file with different layers selected, is it rendered multiple times? So I think perhaps you can let us know, Gareth, if we're interpreting this incorrectly, but I think what Gareth means is if you're working with different files, the same file, but you're setting up different layers, is there any extra overhead, Darrin, if that layer isn't switched on?
If it is like right now, all these being disabled, like is it?
Yeah.
They're not being calculated, to my knowledge. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just really also about the workflow, about using multiple different files. If you've got the same file but in different instances.
Yeah. So here,
I understand.
Okay, so I'll let's see. All right. Well, you know what? Here, I'll do that with a couple. I'll do that with the reflections. Let me refresh my memory here. Yeah, everything except for that. So I'll go ahead and delete these reflection layers. So I got that refractions layer, which I just soloed. I'm just going to duplicate it. Okay. Or, you know, of course, you can take the original and drag it into your list, and then I'll rename this reflections. But when you add it to your stack in this way, then you will likely have to adjust many more options. So now for example, I have to set the render to current. I'm going to set my layers. That's all good. And I'm going to give this a second to render. There's a weird thing going on with the deformer that's not coming through. But I'm going to now also say I want just the reflections out of this. So I'll turn that on. And even though it's trying to render in the background, I'm going to make a change while that's happening. And I'm going to go from the RGBA to reflection and hit OK. We'll give this some time to render. So right now what it's doing is it's calculating everything on those layers, and it's going to render out the whole thing, but it's only going to display the reflections from that render in this one layer. I'm also going to have to change that blending mode. There we go. So there we can see the reflections only. I'll go ahead and set that to add. And I actually they're, you know, it's like they're noticeable here, but as soon as we see this with everything else behind it, we lose a bit of those reflections. So one of the cool things about working in post this way is that we can just copy and paste those layers to make those reflections more or less intense. We don't have to really go back and deal with the material system here or there. It's just a nice, fast way of working. So if I were to solo all those, there we go. So there's all the reflections layers, and then I have an ambient layer, which is giving me the sort of self-illuminated elements. Let me solo that. It is calculating, so we'll give it a moment. There we go. So this is really just sort of like the caps on the text, and I think that's something that Elly may show you guys how to do. And then we got shadows and then fog. So let me solo that shadow pass. Now this one I did set to a multiplied blending mode. And there we go. So this was all created in Lite. And then I have this fog, which actually comes from a light. It's a volumetric light in Cinema 4D Lite. So that is on its way to our eyes as I speak. And after we get our eyes on this fog, and then I show you the whole completed comp, then what I want to do is I want to jump into Lite, and I want to build something up from scratch, not this, something more abstract, just working with some of the objects and materials, and just so you guys can start having some fun in Cinema 4D Lite. Now the volumetric light does take a little longer to render than like a regular light without volumetrics, but as you can see here, the effect is really cool. It's totally worth it in my opinion. So if I now turn off the solo, we'll see that on top of everything else, and it really adds so much depth to the shot, I think. So, you know, another cool thing about working this way is that we can take effects in After Effects, and you know, we're basically treating this as if it were, you know, any other type of footage in After Effects. So you can apply all of your effects to it like you would normally. So it's pretty cool. But as I showed earlier, there's that live link between Cinema 4D and After Effects. So we can always change something here or in Light, and then it will automatically update here, which is pretty cool.
Quick question, Darrin. Two questions. One is regarding whether you need to save in Cinema 4D Lite before you can see the updates in After Effects. And another question was asking, could you run from scratch and start and build up a scene? That's what I think, Darrin, you're absolutely planning to do that as well.
Well, if they're asking me to build up this scene from scratch,
and how you would start, it doesn't any scene really.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's what I was about to do. Shall I jump? So the first question is, yeah, you save in Light, and then when you switch back to After Effects, it automatically recognizes that it has been that the file's changed, and it'll refresh the CINEWARE layers in the Cinema 4D file.
Fantastic.
So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close After Effects here to save some RAM and stuff, and then I'm going to switch to Cinema 4D Lite. Now, before we started today, I started building something up, and I'm going to go ahead and render it. And this is a very fast render. It's a very sort of abstract project, and so you know, I'm going to rebuild this guy, or you know, build something like it, so you guys can primarily see me working in Cinema 4D Lite and where I'm getting all this stuff from, because there's a good amount of content that we have to work with. So I'm going to switch out of my camera by going to the default camera, so you can see everything in this scene comes, you know, from the asset browser in Light. If not the asset browser, then it's just sort of a regular object like the landscape. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a new file here. There we go. So I just clicked on this little plus, and that creates a new file, Untitled 3. And you know, again, this is just like a Cinema 4D file. It's not a special Cinema 4D Lite file, which is really cool. So you can use it. It can be opened on any version. So I'm going to start out with my landscape primitive object, and there's some orange dots to control, you know, like the size on the X, the Y, and the Z. But the thing is that the borders of this are at what this object considers to be the sea level. And I actually like to turn this off so that I get all of these sort of like peaks and valleys here. So now when I adjust that Y size, you know, the bottom is not necessarily fixed, and that's just sort of how it is. But this is great because now I can take a plane and I can drag it up on the Y-axis, and this is essentially like the surface of the water, right? So I can sort of decide where I can see more or less water. I just want a couple of pools here and there. And I want to find a good spot to sort of set this up. So I think I'm going to fiddle with the type of landscape I'm looking at by changing the seed. That's going to sort of like re-randomize everything. So in the landscape object, I'm just going to just sort of bloop, click and drag, change that number randomly, or use the up and down arrows. And this has a nice ridge going through the middle. So let's see if I move the floor or that plane down a bit. What I'd really like is something on this side and something on the opposite with some visibility in the middle. So I don't want to get too bogged down in trying to find just the right thing. Let's see here. You know what, we'll do this guy. So I'm going to sort of frame the shot up how I like it. And let's see, let's say about here. And I'm being careful not to show the horizon, right? If I zoom out, you see that dotted line there? That is the horizon line. And so I actually want to hide that with my scene. And if I need to, I can always add another landscape by holding the Control or Command key, and then on the axis handle, clicking and dragging and pulling that back, I'm going to create a duplicate of that object. And then I can sort of make that taller and wider and deeper, and I can have that take up more of the view in the background. Let's go like right there. So I'm going to turn that off for now, and I'm going to render my view by clicking on this icon here, and very, very plain. So I need some materials, I need some lights, and the way I'm going to work is a special way, and that's with PBR materials and a sky for the main lighting. So this icon here is the sky. I'll drag that in, and let me show you why I'm working this way. So I'm going to create a new default material, and I'm going to put that on the landscape and the plane here. And I'm going to go ahead and render that view. Okay, cool. Now on the sky, I need something that actually looks like a sky. So in the asset browser right here, I'm going to click to open that up, and I'm going to search for SUN, and a whole bunch of assets that are available are popping up. And let's see, here's a texture.
So Darrin, you've just, this could be a topic which we could do a quick side comment on, the fact that you just brought up the asset browser. And this is something which people have asked us recently about, because it was introduced in R25, which is the most recent version of Cinema, which is also the most recent version of C4D Lite if you're launching it from After Effects. And we're using the 2022 version of After Effects, so it's the most recent one. In fact, what's the version that you're using of After Effects here, Darrin?
Let's see, the version I have is 25.115.
God, that's
I'm sorry, did you say After Effects?
After Effects, yes. So this is where you'd launch it from. I think it's 22.1.1.
Yeah, so I have already closed my After Effects, but it is the most current one. It is the most current version of After Effects that I was using.
Cool.
Yeah, 22.11.
So the question we were asked is about the asset browser and what you can see in the asset browser in Lite versus the full version.
Yeah, very good. So everything that you're seeing that I here, all these objects, these are all available for you to download and use in Lite. All right. Now, I know that everything here is only what I can get in Lite, because in the asset browser there's this option show unavailable, and I have that off. Now, if I were to turn this on, then if I go to, let's see, let's go back to objects, and then let's see, what was a good outdoor? So under antennas, there's a couple of different antenna models, but only one of them is available to me. If I look at this little icon here, it's that little cloud icon with a cross. It is not available in this version / license. And so to avoid, you know, wanting to download something that I can't because of my current license, I have this option disabled. So I only see those assets which I can download and use. So I actually use this guy. I'm going to drag him in as well. We'll get back to him later. So let's like go check out materials, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, sorry, could you just quickly show the button for the asset browser again, just the one on the top left?
Yeah, so it's this little, yeah, it looks like a little box with a lid and a little cloud logo on the front of the box. That is the asset browser. You click it, it opens. You click it again, it closes. It's one of the new features in 25. And then, you know, you're going to open it up. It's probably going to be in all by default, and it's cool because here you can see like, you know, what new content is available. But I'm going to go to materials, and then this is automatically filtered to show just categories that are in materials. And I'm going to go to ground, and here I can adjust the size of the preview. Let's go here. So let's see. Now I'm going to have some water in here. I'm going to start with this. You know what? Let's put rocks on the very bottom here. So I'm actually going to be stacking up materials, and this is going to be the first one. So let me close that and do a test render. Okay, very weird and awkward. There's a number of changes I want to make here. And you know what? I never really showed the difference between the why I want to do this PBR thing. So let me do that real quick. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call it HDR. And I'm just going to use the luminance channel and load that evening sunset.exr. I'm just dragging and dropping it right here into the luminance channel texture field. And then this material I'm going to put onto the sky. Now, if I render this, we see it, this looks exactly the same. However, if I, instead of using a default material on the landscape and everything, if I instead make this a PBR material, landscape, I'm just dragging it right on top of that little material icon to replace the existing material, then there's something different here, which is much more visible when I go into the reflectance channel and turn off the specular brightness. That's all the way down to 0. So now what's happening when I render is I'm actually getting like light and some shadow from this sky. And I can actually like move around and sort of see how that's, you know, see that reflectance there. So I definitely want that angle that I had a moment ago here, but I want the sun to be sort of more visible. So I'm going to go to the sky object and I can rotate it here in its coordinates, or I can go to the rotate tool and then click and drag on this green rotation band, like so. And now when I render, cool. So there's some jaggies here. Let's increase that landscape. What time is it, you guys?
22.
Okay.
So you did
wow.
good.
We do have a quick question. Just wanted to jump in from Fernando. Said, what is the difference between Cinema 4D Lite and the full version of Cinema 4D? The quick answer to that, Fernando, is that there's lots of differences, and we want to cover them as we jump through the number of weeks. But if you had to sum it up, Darrin, what would you say it was?
I would say that the oversimplified, unfair, short answer to that question is that this version of Lite is made for you to begin creating 3D in the full 3D app to bring into your After Effects projects. But it does not include like all of the, all of the modeling and materials and lighting and animation and character tools and features that the full version has. So like it's like modeling is primarily about primitive objects and spline-based modeling, which we'll be getting into later, I believe. And pretty much every part of Cinema 4D Lite gives you just like a small sample of features in the various tool sets and focus areas like MoGraph or architecture or whatever. But it is limited. So did that answer the question?
Yes. What would be your take on this, Elly? What the general differences are between, because you're covering a lot of MoGraph things and text in next week's session. But if you've had to say generally what the difference is, how would you sum it up?
Yeah, so I think Darrin put it perfectly in the way he said it is like an introduction to the main Cinema 4D package, which could be overwhelming to someone who's maybe new to like 3D. For me, yeah, a lot of the differences are in like the MoGraph tools, as well as kind of like the modeling tools. Dynamics aren't included, but it does give you a bit of a taster of like MoGraph. And there's still, even though it's a limited amount of tools, we can still make some really fun and cool like motion graphics animations with the few things that are in there. And then if people love them, then when they then move on, or if they then move on to the full package, they've already got a bit of a taster and a bit of a kind of an idea of how things work and go together. So then it's maybe not as daunting of a piece of software.
That's a great way of explaining it as well. Warren has jumped in with an explanation too. Key difference he's noticed is that Lite flows back into After Effects, and if you need export options of Cinema 4D like an OBJ, then you'll need the full version. I mean, that's a great point as well, Warren. And as you both say, this is designed as a starting point to be able to add 3D fairly painlessly into your After Effects comps.
Yeah, for sure.
And another small thing we've noticed is that it's very easy just to make a small little element inside Cinema 4D Lite, and then have that as an element inside After Effects. But we also wanted to show, as Darrin is building up now, we wanted to show that you're not limited by that, because you can make some things which look much more sophisticated, as Darrin's building here, without too much effort to be able to build up a landscape scene as he's doing, for example.
So like, I want to get some water in here. I created a material just with, really just with transparency. And I did it just a moment ago, so you can rewatch the recording. But I just chose this preset to water, put that back up to 100. And I turned down this absorption distance and set a color. And this is a really cool feature. It allows us to add depth in here. Now, if I were to, instead of using this guy, actually use a floor object, which is like this infinite plane, right? This water plane is sort of limited, but this one, this one goes off, to the horizon. so that if I zoom out, we'll see an island. Let's render this. We'll see an island in there. And the cool thing is with that absorption distance, we get a cool sort of depth effect where the deeper it goes, the darker it will get, and the more color, the deeper that color will be also. So that adds, you know, a little bit of interest to this shot. And one of the things that's a little distracting is I expect the material to change based on where it's, you know, more underwater, right? It should be more wet. So I'm going to get another material and layer it on top here. So let's go back to the materials, to grounds, and let's see, I used rocks. So let's go with, let's try this one, forest ground. Actually, let's do this one. I'm going to download that guy. Just clicked on the little icon. And then down in the bottom left corner it says downloading. And I wonder how long that's going to take with GoToWebinar going. So I think I'll, oh, I can't, while that's downloading, I can't click on anything. So I'll have to wait. Oops. But what I want to do with this is I want to put it on top in a way that the part of this land that is out of the water gets this material. So I want to use like some sort of gradient or ramp to knock out part of that material. And I want to show you how to do that with a gradient shader. There we go. Almost downloaded, 99, 100%. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that onto the landscape. Now I have two materials, one on top of the other. This one on the right is on top. And if I render this, we can see how that looks. The scale is awfully large. So I'm going to single click on that tag and go to the tiles, and let's say 10 and 10 and do another test render. That's pretty small. And there's like this displacement thing happening. What that means is that the material, and I'm opening this up by double clicking on the material, has this displacement, and 9 centimeters is a bit large here. So I'm going to say 0.1 so that we're more in line with the original landscape. Now I need to get that gradient. So to set this up, what I like to do is get a new material just to set this up, okay? And in its color channel, load the gradient shader, okay? And then let's go ahead and drag this on here. Now I want something that I can control for many different materials blending, and I want a view that I can return to. So I'm going to first add a camera. That's this icon here. And now I can move around, and I can always go back to this camera's view by clicking on this little box here, or by double clicking on the icon of the camera. You can jump in and out, right? But this gradient, if I render selection, which is currently my landscape, we'll see that gradient is going in a different direction. Now, if I click on gradient, I can choose what type of gradient I have, and I'm actually going to go with the 3D linear. And I'm going to show you how to sort of tweak this to work within the right values, or more appropriate values, I should say. Because if I render this right now, that's just sort of weird. What do I need here? Well, we have, for the start, 3 numbers, X, Y, and Z. Same thing with the end, X, Y, and Z. So what values do I need? I can see in the coordinate manager down here, that's this icon in the bottom right corner. I can see that the size on the Y axis, that's the X, the Y, and the Z, the Y is 76.044. Also, I can see that right there. So I'm going to go in the start values, and I'll say like 76 divided by 2, so 38 there, and then negative 38 there. And let's render that. And now I can sort of see that how that gradient's coming in, and it's actually cycling. It's like looping in itself. So now when I turn that off, I'm seeing just sort of like where the bottom and the top are. And I can really sort of get in and refine that by adjusting these values. So I'll pull that in. And so we're going from black to white. And I can just sort of fiddle with that and get the black right up to the top there. Let's hide the floor because it's a little distracting. There we go. And we can bring that white down a bit. And once I get something that works, now I can come in and I can take these little gradient knots and I can slide them around to create the mask for my material. And I can adjust, I can adjust like the fall off of it like that. So once I get this set up, then I can copy this shader. And then in that forest ground material, which right now is on everything, I can turn on its alpha channel and then paste that shader that I just copied. And now when I render, we're going to see the two materials. We're going to see the rocks and the forest. Let's jump into the camera. Let's show the floor and do the test render. Okay, so now you can see that fading of those materials. So I just wanted to show how you can stack up materials. This actually, I want it to be the other way around, so I can click on invert and re-render. That's in the alpha channel. I've inverted the alpha channel. So now down here we have rocks, which I can barely see, and then up here we have that forest ground. So, you know, I'd want to like layer up some more, and let me just check the time, which we're getting close to the end of. Let me open up a more completed version of this. One of the assets that I use from the asset browser, which I think is really cool, is under objects and electronics. It's this video board. I'm just going to drag that in and go to my move tool. And now this is going to be way too big right off the bat. So I'm going to get the axis about there, and then I'm going to switch to scale and scale that down like so. And yeah, so this is an asset that I used in another version of this scene, which I'm going to load here to show you. And let me render this. Oops, that was render selection. Let's render view. So I got the water floor. I have a landscape with some layered materials. I have the same sky in here, that HDR. And one thing I didn't get to is there's that fog effect that I created, also visible in this version of the same type of project with like a landscape and some fog and stuff. You know, this fog comes from a light actually, and it's a really cool feature that we get. It's that volumetric light, but to take the best advantage of it, you want to spend some time with the different light types because they give you different shapes. So if I go to, I'll go to Spotlight here, and then I'll go to Visible Light and set that to volumetric and render, and we can see there's sort of like some haze there. Now we can go to the Noise tab and say, I want some noise in the visible light or visibility. Now when I render, it's not, you know, 100% uniform, and I can like play with the brightness and the contrast to get like more black, less white. There's a couple of different types of of noises here, and we can adjust the scale with the visibility scale. And this can also be animated on the X, the Y, and the Z axis, which is pretty cool. But those shapes give us a lot of control. So the shape that I used was not spot, it was actually square parallel spot, which gives me like this cube. And all I needed to do was rotate this 90 degrees so it's pointing up and adjust the size of it. Now let me just copy that and go to the scene that I was building up and paste it. And I'm going to move this light so it's like right at the top of the water. So there's like a haze on the water. So I took a little shortcut there. And then I'm going to turn down the outer distance so the haze just goes up just a little bit above the water. And I'll do a quick render here. So we can see there's just a bit of fog there. I'm not sure if there's any noise, but we're gonna, yeah, there's a little bit of noise, but we're gonna have to end here because we're running out of time. Now, one thing I had to do here was this no illumination. I don't want the light to actually create light. I just want the haze. I just want the visible light, the visibility. So I checked on no illumination. Without it, you can see that the whole thing is now being lit by this light, and so everything else looks too dark. That's why I had to do that. Yeah, am I right on timing, you guys?
We are closing right up to the top of the hour, Darrin. So the one thing we could show is we had a few questions about different levels of approach inside C4D Lite and what you can do and integrate it with After Effects. So it'd probably be worth us just having a little chat about the fact that we are doing multiple setups over these 4 weeks. Because we wanted to show you that you can do lots of different things, not just the very simple setups, but you can do something, as you've just shown, some really interesting things quite quickly, which look more sophisticated than the time taken to build them up. But we can also show you how you can then integrate this inside After Effects and even getting small little things that you want to put in your project. So that's what we're trying to balance over the next number of weeks.
Yeah, that's right. I'm stopping the screen share and turning on my camera. What other questions did we get, or if we even have time?
There are a few questions about how do I update the version of CINEWARE 4D Lite that I've got, and you should be able to do that using the Maxon app, where you need also to have the latest version of After Effects, so you can go into Creative Cloud and then update that to the new version 2. And we are often putting together little bug fixes and updates, and I believe there's one imminently due for the latest version of C4D Lite. So if you have a look at that very soon, you should be able to see that too. There's a few questions about that one too. Cool, and since I know we're just screaming to the top of the hour, but Elly, do you want to just talk about what you might be covering next week? I think you've got a teaser image of how you might be working with Light and also After Effects.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen.
I send the screen to you.
Cool.
Whilst we're doing that, a couple of questions about where you can find the actual reference files and the source files for the sessions. We'll be adding those as we add the recordings as well. So please follow that link in the PDF, and we'll add those as we go through. Sometimes we'll add them at the start of the show. I think we might actually be adding those at the start next time for your session, Elly.
Yeah, probably. Cool. Yeah. So really quickly, next week's session is going to be based around sort of using C4D Lite to create some motion graphics animation using a couple of the MoGraph tools, as well as someone suggested earlier about looking at an introduction to keyframing. And so we will be adding a couple of keyframes to kind of, create some animation inside of Light. So this is a little scene I put together, and it just sort of like comes around, and this is really simple. It just uses some text and a couple of different tools inside of Cinema 4D, and it's got like 2 keyframes going on. And then we'll look at sort of creating some of this. Hopefully you can see this sort of like crazy displacement. And if we move this field over here, we can kind of just move and control where this is happening. And this technique can be used for like a variety of different things. I just thought I'd make it in like a text scene. And then we're also going to look at, this is something I just did now, but we'll make like a more interesting text animation. But there is a way that we can turn our text into MoGraph text, and then we can start to animate it really quite easily and quite quickly. And then we can bring all of that back into our After Effects file. So yeah,
that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, those are cool examples, Elly.
Yeah, I want to focus it on how you can quickly and easily make this stuff. So how Cinema 4D Lite can make your lives easier, making these cool text objects or elements or animations without having to worry about spending hours on a project or anything like that.
My time as a freelance, and also the studios that we visit, there's always this encouragement to create something that looks amazing that only takes a short amount of time to do it. And that's the nice thing, to be able to introduce 3D elements into After Effects designs to do that. And especially with text. We've had a couple of questions about text. Thank you, Nick, for your patience. Nick asked a question right at the start, even before we started, about a specific text setting. So we're planning to cover that on next week's session when Elly goes through text, Nick. So thanks for your patience with that. And also, Chad's going to be running us through the settings about how do you build something up from scratch, and then also how you then incorporate that inside After Effects. So there's so many different elements to this, but we wanted to jump in and give you different angles at different levels so that you can get an overall sense of what's possible. That's did I cover all the things that we didn't show this show that we're showing in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's the joy of having 4 weeks. We can cover so many different topics for everyone.
That is true. That's true. Absolutely. And also, don't forget, if I can make myself the organizer, let's make me the presenter. I just want to remind everyone that here we go. Where am I showing the Maxon Training Team? Here we go. Show this window. This is the place where you can see the recording. So we had a number of questions as well. Just go to YouTube and search for Maxon Training Team, and then you can see all the recordings that we've done for this show, as well as all the other ones. And also, we had a couple of questions about how do we get into nomenclature? It's easy for you to say. How the naming of different 3D things. If you're new to 3D, please check out the hands-on with Maxon sessions that Elly put together with Matt, which go through the UI and the differences and so what some of the concepts mean, so you can get up to speed with that. There's a really great result also on the Maxon Training Team channel. Fantastic. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it, and thank you for all the amazing questions. And we've noticed a number of other ones as coming through. Inevitably, what's the question? What is the spec of your computer, Darrin? Somebody was asking because they wanted a machine that rendered that quickly.
Oh my. Let's see. Let me pull that up. This is actually a pretty awesome Dell machine. Let me do settings and system and a boot. So this is a Xeon Gold 6258R CPU. So that's actually a 2.69 gigahertz. There's 2 of those in there. So I think I get like 32 or 64 buckets when I'm rendering, which is pretty awesome. There's 128 gigabytes of RAM that's installed, and that is what is doing everything that you saw me doing. It's actually not using my GPU, with the exception of like me moving around in the 3D view. That's the GPU does that, but all the rendering and everything else is on the CPU currently.
Got it. It's a Dell Precision Tower, isn't it? I think.
It is. It is a Precision 7920.
7920.
Yeah, it's a beast. It's pretty cool.
Well, we'll talk more about this as we go on, because we appreciate we've gone slightly over, so thank you for bearing with us. But that GPU and CPU discussion and when you should use which for either, that's also something that we'll talk about more as we go on in the next few weeks. There you go. This is the longest goodbye ever, wasn't it? So thank you, everyone.
That's what it is.
Yes, exactly. We don't want to go. So thanks for this, and we'll see you on next week's one, next Monday. All right. Cheers then.
Everyone.
Bye.